This is Career Competitor, and it is the podcast that believes we all have a competitive self that drives our optimal performance in our careers and within our lives. My name is Steve Mellor, and in the past 15 years, having been a coach to high performers, Olympians, business owners, executives across all walks of life, I have come to find that competitiveness comes from within. And I'm going to be using this podcast to really showcase how competitors from all walks of life are finding optimal performance and have built the careers that they have today. Hello there, and welcome into this episode of Career Competitor. I'm so excited to be welcoming in my guest today, Todd Saylor, who will certainly be getting the introduction that he is worthy of here shortly. But before we get into that, let me just set the table here for what we're going to be getting into within our discussion today. Firstly, Todd and I uncover why we should all have a competitive piece to our day that sets us apart. Secondly, we get into the importance of valuing where things have worked for you in one aspect of life and how they can serve you in other parts as well. And finally, we learn about Todd's personal take on success through his concept of becoming a successionaire. So all this and much more within our discussion today. So I'm really excited to be getting into this one. Todd is filled with energy, so much purpose, so much intention in the work that he's doing. And I'm so excited to have him come share that energy with us today. So without any further delay, let's get right into it with my discussion with Todd Saylor on this episode of Career Competitor, and I hope you all enjoy. Hey, before we carry on with this episode, let me bring your attention to a link that you'll find right there in the show notes so that you can subscribe to my monthly email. It's just going to give you some awesome insights on who it is I am, what it is I've got going on, and maybe there'll be one or two food for thoughts in there that can stimulate your process, get you to get a little unstuck, get you to take a little bit more action, and maybe get you a little closer to optimal performance as you start to shape a stronger version of your optimal self. Go ahead, click that link in the show notes so you can become part of the ever-growing email list that's receiving this awesome insight each and every month, courtesy of me and courtesy of Career Competitor. Now, back to the episode. Alrighty, our career competitor today is on a mission to be America's coach as the man behind the internationally known brand Wired Differently and the Tiki Hut Business Retreat. Our guest is America's functional business coach, and his mission is to build you personally, spiritually, and profitably. Through 30 plus years of entrepreneurial experience in business and leadership, our guest is still competing within the arena as he operates 14 businesses of his own en route to amassing a multi-million-dollar net worth. But one of my favorite things to read about our guest is that despite all the successes and titles attached to his name, nothing matters more than the titles of husband, father, and friend. I am so excited to introduce our guest who will challenge you to be, do, and think differently in business and in life, Mr. Todd Saylor. Todd, how are we doing?
Thank you, Steve. Good job. I can't but help. I'm watching you do your thing. You're so good. I did my prep on you, and I gotta tell you, man, you have a sexy barber. Clearly,
we have the same one. We have the same one.
Man, but you got all the black, the black beard going on.
Trust me, I got a 3 and a 4-year-old that are doing some damage to this every day. The stress of parenthood, man.
This gray beard and bald head is the product of 3 daughters.
Oh, I feel for you, man. I got a girl and a boy, so fortunately I've got a little bit more balance than that, but that's a whole lot of estrogen that you're dealing with there.
You have no idea. 33 years old, 32, and 24. Those are my daughters.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful.
So anyways, you're going to get one. You're going to earn one of these gray beards, brother.
I definitely
I'm counting on you.
I know. And again, between fatherhood, being a husband, and then let's just throw in the added part of being an entrepreneur. I mean, the demands, the stresses, the expectations, all of these things, being in so many places for so many people in so many times, it never ends. And I want to start right there, brother. I want to start right there in terms of, just as we're about to record, you're telling me I'm up at 4:30. I got a live thing going at 7:30. Like, talk to me through the work that you do simply on your ability to remain in this day, the day that we're talking right now, and then when you wake up tomorrow to do the very same thing again tomorrow. How do you remain in the moment when you have so much stuff going on in your world?
Man, that's tricky because we were just having a casual conversation and you pull that out of the air, right? Like, so I'm busted. Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is I was telling you about my own podcast. I do a podcast every morning, 7:30 a.m., Monday through Friday. I'll miss sometimes. I have a studio in Indiana and I have a studio here in Florida. And I like doing it in the studios. I like the comfort. I like the way it looks. It makes me feel like I know you like your studio. So sometimes when I'm traveling, I don't do the live show, but I don't miss. I'm on like 120 podcasts. If you go to toddsaylor.com or you go to Spotify, you go to Todd Saylor, WDEX, Wired Differently Experience, you can catch my podcast. But I guess the thing is, why did I pick 7:30? Why do I go live? Well, I think the beginning of the day is the most important thing. And I've always been successful launching the beginning of my day. That's been my competitive piece. Like, you're talking about parenting, you're talking about being a partner, you're talking about all these things, and we're joking about what our children have done to us, right? I wonder the ROI in children sometimes, but I digress. I got 4 grandkids, so there's some ROI right there. That's I got a whole piece in my 3rd book, Your Will Be Done. I talk about riches and wealth, happiness and joy, and how God blesses us with love, unconditional love, and then he shows us these things in our life and we call it joy. So I guess the thing is that I really want that stability of me having something to do, a purpose every morning. Yeah, I'm coaching people, I'm teaching people, but guess what, man? I have to do it to myself. Mm-hmm. And how can I hold other people to standards, discipline, if I'm not willing to get up at 4:30 in the morning? I'm their coach.
Right.
Right. If I'm not willing, you're a swimmer, dude. I know you got up at 4:30 once in a while.
I sure did.
Yeah, you got to get there before everybody else. I played college football. I had a pro tryouts in 1987. I remember all those things, but I mean, it doesn't change. The competitive side of us doesn't change. It can't change. That's what separates us. That's what makes us wired differently, Steve. I mean, we're not like everybody else. We get up earlier, we go to bed later, we cry differently, we try differently, we win differently, we lose differently, we go through all this trauma differently. I mean, we're just different. Mm-hmm. And I can't take my people or my students to a level of where they want me to take them if I'm not willing to continue to take the steps in a disciplined route. And it starts at 4:30 in the morning. And it starts with scripture, and it starts with building people personally, spiritually, and profitably. Those are the things that I teach and coach as a functional coach, right? I can teach anybody how to make $1 million. 100%. I guarantee it in my coaching product. Mm-hmm. I guarantee it. But you're not going to keep it if you don't listen to me on the personal growth, more importantly, the spiritual growth, and you transcend that into your fruitful or profitable growth.
Yep.
And so it all starts right there at 4:30 in the morning, 4:45. I get up, start scripture. I start to write the content for my podcast. I go over it again. I rehearse it. And then at 7:30, I click live is the thing. Here's the thing. I think we're probably recording here. You're going to produce it. I think most people do it that way. It's the safest way to do it.
Sure.
I know that I have to be razor sharp at 7:30, and I have to click that button, Steve, man. And all of a sudden, the juices they just go through my fingers, through my arms, my hand. I'm like, I'm ready,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's developing me from a personal discipline level. I think it's developed me from my speaking skill set level, my creative skill set level, and it's sharpening my irons in a business skill set level too. So 5 days out of the week, the first 3 hours, I'm doing my show. And I'm doing it not only for just my students, but I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it for the clients. And so that's a kind of a long answer, but that's it, brother.
Well, we only do long answers in podcasting. That's the beauty of it. And, and so there's so much immediately there that this kind of lays the platform for where we can potentially go with this conversation, because my mind, one of the probably the biggest takeaway I take from that is this notion of the competitor within us is never going away. It's always going to be there. And the other side of that too was how success, the relationship that we have with ourselves, must grow. The quality of that relationship with ourselves, that familiarity of who our best self is, must continue to grow. We must continue to invest in that person the same way that we're looking to invest in the growth of that business and the successes that we have. And so this is a really nice segue to go into your life with your competitive self, because I would just love to maybe hear how that side of you, while the competitor has never gone away, as we allude to, again, that's the same with me. That's what we're all about on this show, is embracing that part of us. What have you done over the years to maybe reframe the personality or the identity that comes with, or at least the impact of that part of yourself that it has on you when it comes to the competitor within you? How have you gotten to know that part of yourself over the years?
Well, I think the easiest way to answer that question is I don't know if we reframe it, it's just we reposition it, right? And I think we're not to conform to the patterns of this world. I think that for some reason you said that, it made me think this to my head from a biblical perspective. I want everyone to understand that we can't conform to the patterns of this world. We have to conform. We have to transcend our way of thinking, our competitive side of us, our beliefs, our structures, our faith, right? And we need to refocus those competitive desires that we've had early on in our life, that we did from the age of probably, what time I started playing football in 5th grade, right? You probably started swimming.
The moment I saw my older sister get in the pool, and I was like, she's better at me than something I want to get into. That was pretty much it.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. It becomes part of our lives. It becomes part of who we are. It becomes, so those disciplines that were wrapped around that gift, that craft that you had, right, is then now conformed or transformed into a different position in your life, right? And so you're pulling on those disciplines, those 430 reps, those swimming reps, those laps, and everything that you've did in your life, and you're saying, okay, this worked for me here. Now I know it's going to work for me here. We just can't swim everywhere, right? But we can take the gifts that we've learned from swimming. I can take the gifts from becoming an All-American football player. I can take the gifts from learning. I used to get up at 3 a.m. to make donuts. Matter of fact, what very many people know about me is that my craft is I'm a donut maker. Matter of fact, I will tell you one step further. You got to Google me. I'm a blast. ToddSaylor.com. Get to my website. Google me, Todd Saylor. I'm literally the owner of the donut capital of the world. I mean, come on now, somebody think about that for a second, right? Out of 14 companies, I just bought 2 more this week, and I'm super excited to talk about that at a later date with the people in the right places. But right now, I just think that competitive edge that I had in track as a pole vaulter, that competitive edge as a wrestler, right? That competitive thing that my father taught me in the throes of football never left me.
Right.
And I found a way to put it into my children. I found a way to put it into my businesses. Now I'm finding a way to make my business coaching so I can put it in not only into my coaching business, but I can put it into the people I'm coaching. And that's my job as a coach. That's your job as a coach. Your job is to get the best out of these people. You got to not only coach, but you got to teach. You got to do both. You got to know when it's time to teach, and you got to know when it's time to coach. And a lot of coaches don't know that.
Right.
But I think that us being ex-athletes know, because we were in those situations like, coach, man, I don't need to hear this right now. Right. I need this.
Right.
Right. Now, coach, listen, I don't need a lecture right now. I need some encouragement. Right. And so I think that us being these athletes, us being these peoples in the throes of this world and the way that we were able to get results, it's great for us, because we need to know that we need to coach and teach our athletes, teach and coach our students in a way that we can get the most out of them, because that's what we're called to do now. And so that's where I would go with that.
Yeah.
I would totally tell you, we have got to take those gifts of our competitive nature and move them into the arena now that we're in. And we can't look back.
No. And repositioning is 100% the right word in comparison to reframe, in the sense that I can just talk about my own journey of
going from an Olympic swim coach to now being an entrepreneur and an executive coach, when I started sitting down and talking to said business owner for the first time, said executive team for the first time, you get that look across the table at first of just like, what do you know? You came from swim coaching. What are you talking about? Why are you in this room? Why are we having this meeting? And then suddenly all I do is I take the very notions and the very concepts that were once being applied in the world of swimming and put it in words, make sense to them in their particular arena. And all of a sudden now they just go, oh, wait, there's actually a common denominator here. Swimmers, executives, they're both human beings. Turns out they're both human beings. They're just operating in different competitive worlds.
And they both want to win.
And they both want to win. They both want to win. They want to grow. And they want to compete.
You see Tom Brady took a job at Delta?
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes.
So it's exactly kind of what you're talking about. Right. I thought the interview was a little odd, but I mean, the concept of, sure, Tom Brady's a winner. Sure, he's going to do something for Delta. But listen, man, a guy like you, I would love to have you come into my organization. I would love for someone in my organization, my executives, to hear your stories. They're tired of mine. Right? but the point of the matter is, winners begat winners, right?
Right.
And that's what our job is to do. Is I want to do it in a spiritual, God glorifying way. I think God is the biggest winner of all time. I think Jesus is like he is the man, right? When it comes to winning, he's the guy, right? And so if we can align ourselves to grow our students personally, we can align to grow them in a spiritual way, and then we can align easier to align them in a profitable growth way.
No doubt. And when it comes to Jesus' story, the question is if you want to allow him to be the leader that he is, you get to make that decision. And
that's funny. Like I didn't know where I didn't really. That's great. I'm glad you said that.
Well, I'm just saying. And again, I've not really spoken about it on the podcast, but I made a huge decision in regards to my faith in the last 12 months. I committed myself to Jesus. Like I got myself baptized. I was baptized back as a baby, but I said, you know what, this is where I'm at in my journey in my life. And it was a decision my wife and I made back in January of 2023, was because we felt,
we'll be done, baby.
That's it. You will be done.
Let's get it on, Steve.
And it just like,
you've blessed me right now. This all makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that and being, I think it's hard. I did a show this morning. The title of it was, I said, Daniel, and don't make me say it again. And I talked about this whole idea of faith and courage and the story of Daniel, and how I think a lot of us, we want to profess these things in our life. We want to get out in front and say we're going to win the game. We want to get out and say this is how we're going to do it. And we want to profess, our beliefs, but the world kind of just doesn't want us to proclaim Jesus, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. The world doesn't want us to get out there too far politically. The world wants us to, it's just crazy where things are going in this world from that perspective. And at some point, and I know I'm off tangent here, but I mean, we have got to hold up our hand and say, this is what I stand for. Mm-hmm. And you were brave enough to say on a live podcast here what you were convicted to say. Mm-hmm. And the story of Daniel was this: Nebuchadnezzar said, you can't pray. And he said, I'm praying, you can't stop me. So he prayed anyways. And he threw him in jail with a bunch of lions. And he said, listen, let's see if your God can save you now. Mm. He knew that if he prayed, he was going to go to the lion's den. But he stood his ground, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that where are we at in our life when it comes to coaching students, or where are we at in our life when we're coming to follow coaches? Where are we at in our life when we're just in this position where maybe we just don't understand, but we know we need to be convicted. But then when the pressures of society weigh on us, we just kind of say, well, I'm not going to say anything. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to stay out of this political battle. Here, I'm going to stay out of this political battle. I'm going to stay out of this social economic policy. At the end of the day, man, the most successful athletes, the most successful leaders in this world, the most successful people in the world are people that are willing to stand their ground. Mm-hmm. That is undeniable, whether it's a good ground or bad ground. If you're willing to stand your ground, you're going to get followers, but you're not going to get followers if you're going to be mealy-mouthed about, well, Jesus could do this or Jesus could do that. And, I've done a couple podcasts and I bring it up and they've not done their homework on me. And they're like, oh, did you just say Jesus?
Can't say that.
Yeah. Like, I know it's in my pit of my stomach every time I get ready to bring it up, even with you, Steve. I mean, you're giving me free space. I feel so comfortable with you. But I mean, it's when I finally dive into it, I watch the podcast host's face. Mm. If you're a newer believer, like you just said, it's not easy to say his name.
It's not.
It's not easy. It's not.
The heart of what you're talking about here, Todd, is this notion of conviction. It's an individual being so convinced of not only their beliefs, but of themselves, to be so convinced of themselves that they trust the very belief system that they stand for, and then to go one step further and actually be disciplined enough, be committed enough, be accountable enough to remain true to that version of yourself when a lot of the times everything around you is telling you otherwise. Every influence around you is trying to move you in a specific direction. And this is why I believe you are the coach you are. This is why I happen to know I am the coach I am, is because when a client sits with me, when an athlete, a former athlete has sat with me and they share with me, this is what I want to accomplish. My goal from that point on is to convince them, that they're the one that can go do it. I already believe them. They told me they want to do it.
Right.
Our job as coaches at that point is to then dig deeper, create deeper foundations, and provide the very conviction that we already embody as coaches in this individual that is looking to accomplish what they're looking to accomplish.
And a lot of times, I'm with you 100%. And a lot of times, obviously, they believe, but they're not sure that they believe. And the coach's job is just to help them sort out the plan.
Yeah.
Right. And if there's a good game plan, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have a good game plan, it's really not going to work out so well. And I think there's a lot of people like yourself and myself early on in my life. I knew I was going to catch the ball, but was I going to be in the right position?
Yep.
The coach was great. He set up the offense. He set up the formation. He told us what play to run against, what defense was going to run. And we were always in the best position to utilize our craft or our talent. And I think that the belief structure is always fortified when there's confidence in the strategy. There's confidence in the coach. There's confidence in the plan. And so as a coach, as a believer in the coaching realm, I think that we've literally already had the master plan played out for us. And I think when I start to talk to my students about the fact that we've pretty much won this already, right? Now we just got to get these things in the right places.
Yeah.
You know, interestingly enough, and I'm just going to tell my father, for a period of time was the greatest high school football coach to ever walk the planet. From 1968 to 1976, he never lost a football game. He won 72 games in a row, never lost a Tide, in a little town by the name of Hudson, Michigan. And my fourth book I'm writing right now is the story of the Tiger in Us. And I'm producing a movie titled thetigerinus.com. So you can go to thetigerinus.com, thetigerinus.com, and you can see that movie trailer. It's phenomenal. It's a story. It's a love story about a son and a father, which happens to be me, the son, and my father, the coach. And he literally was in a position to break this win streak record of 71 games in a row. And he had to do it over a period of 9 undefeated seasons in the 70s. So as a little boy, I would go there and I would watch the practices. I would be a part of the practices, Steve. I would hand out salt tablets. I would hand out water. I would do whatever I could do to be around my father. I was around 12 years old. And I went over to a practice one day. He was a competitor. He was a coach. He's just like, this is where it comes from, right? And I remember watching a practice. In this particular practice, they didn't have any football gear on. They were out on the field, and it was overcast, and it was kind of drippy gray skies in Michigan. And I realized there was no footballs, there was no uniforms. I'm like, what's going on? And I looked over, and there was three sections. And one section, these men were crawling under the agility rope like military crawl. And then in another section, I looked over, and they were doing monkey rolls, which is a section of them doing monkey rolls in the mud and screaming and howling. And in the third section, I looked over, and there was like 20 men, 10 at a time, with a man over each shoulder, and they were trying to walk across the length of the field. And I realized that they were done with this exercise, and one man fell down 5 yards before the goal line, and he had another man on his shoulder, and all of a sudden they started yelling at him. Steve, they were literally screaming at this young man, get up, get up, get up. Don't quit. You'll die if you don't get up. And then the agility crawlers came over, the monkey rolls came over, and they were screaming, and they got more violent. Get up, don't quit. You'll die, you'll die. No one's going to save you. And the coaches got around him. 60, 70 men just converge around this guy screaming, but no one's touching him. Out of sheer will, he got up somehow, put the man back over his shoulder, and he lumbered over the last 4 or 5 yards, fell on the finish line, and everyone's saying, he lived, he lived, he lived. As a 12-year-old, I'm sitting over on the sideline. I'm like, what is going on here? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. 1972, right? My father sees me, and they're celebrating. He lived, he lived, he lived. My father says, son, what's going on in your mind? I said, Dad, I thought you were a football coach. I thought you were the greatest football coach ever. I thought you were here to coach these men to football, and I don't understand what's going on. No football. He said, son, it's time you understand this. Dad, what? He said, I'm not a football coach. You're not? He said, no, son. These men are not going to be going to college after high school. These men are not going to be going to work in the factories. These men aren't even going to go home to work on the farm, son. You see, these men, they're going to war. They're going to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Son, I'm not a football coach. I'm a builder of men. You know, it's hard for me to get through that. But I want you to understand, at that point, as even a 12-year-old young man, I knew that's what I wanted in life.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be like my father.
Yeah.
I wanted to have the command of understanding what I wanted in life, and what he wanted in life was for them to be winners in life. He wanted to be a part of saving their life. He wanted to be a part of building these men to be prepared for life and war.
Mm.
So you can't help but being wired differently like me when you grow up with a mentor like that.
Right. Thank you for that story. It's it brings up a lot for me, and for the life of me, please don't take any of it back. Like, again, I'm so appreciative that you would share that, because it's so important sometimes for those that listen to this show. And, you know, this episode is going to be right at that sort of 200 episode mark. We've been doing this for a minute. You know, we've been doing this for a while. And consistently, I see the bar being raised of what it means to be truly challenging what you're capable of, and understanding that challenge comes from the very DNA of who we are. Because we're all looking for these resources. We all want these answers, and you're phenomenal at what you do in terms of providing these answers to many people at many different points of their journey, but you're making it abundantly clear through your own story, which is the one that most authentically matters, especially when you're in your position. That is where the authenticity is built. It's so important that when you're working with someone and you're looking at them and saying, there is a part of you inside, deep inside, that has the capacity, the capability to go and achieve all of these things that you are coming to me to receive coaching on to achieve. And I'm telling you right now, until you really get to the heart of that DNA, where that fabric and component of you was first born, was first produced, whether it's a father figure, a mother figure, a friend, an experience, whatever it is, there's something inside of you that has set you on this course. And there's a possibility that you're so focused on some of these solutions that I can provide to you that you're forgetting why you set off on this course in the first place. And you just told everybody through that story that you are on the course that you are on today. This was 1972, and it is 2023. It is over 50 years later that you started up on this course. That's what you just told us right there. You started on this course over 50 years ago, and your awareness of self has never been greater, and you've never lost sight of the importance of connecting with that most authentic version of you in order to serve all of those things that I referenced in the introduction. Those things don't happen without that awareness of self, that commitment to self. And again, correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here, but that's what I'm hearing from you.
No, and I think that insight is brilliant, and I haven't had someone give me that insight. So I think you spot on. I have been driven in that regards, and I write about it in this third book, Your Will Be Done. And a big part of this book, it does have a lot of stories of the mentorship that my father did give me. But yeah, I think that you blown me away a little bit there, Steve, because I have been on that same course since I was 11 or 12 when that story happened. And I don't think everybody has that aha moment. And honestly, maybe they have, but they don't go back and look for it.
There you go.
And sometimes those moments are negative moments too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are powered by moments, and they're not all positive moments. I mean, some of my most impactful, my most powerful moments in my life have been through failure, when someone's hurt me or someone's attacked my family. You know, those things motivate me. And I think as an individual, I know we're speaking as coaches here, but I think on a personal level, coaches need coaches too. Right. And I think that most successful coaches would tell you they're probably motivated. In my second book, 8 Traits of Supremely Purposeful People, the title of the book is called Drift Again. One word, DRIFTAGAIN, Drift Again. One of the principles of being supremely purposeful is the mark. And I'm guilty of this. I literally pick people to go after. I know some wokey people out there don't like to hear that, but at the end of the day, I mean, it just is what it is. And everyone's motivated differently. And there are really good targets that I go after, and there are targets that I go after that have wronged me. I really don't care how you feel about it. It's just how I motivate myself. And I think that the innermost part of any person needs to understand, how are you fueled? How are you set off? How can you, Steve, get the most out of a client or a student? And I think my father is a mark. And I really didn't think I was an amount of much until I could at least get to the level I had in my mind of where my father was. And it's been a struggle as a young man trying to figure out, how could you do something like that? Well, I would tell you this. I think I've done it. I think I've done it in many, many ways. My father's 82 years. He's got the onset of dementia now, and it's very uncomfortable. He leans on me more than I'm really capable to mentally handle. You know, my father never, I can't remember him really hugging me as a little boy or literally telling me he loved me, but man, he does it all the time now. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not used to that.
Right.
Who
is this guy?
Who is this guy? And it's a little too much, but I'll take it until the end of the days, right? For sure. But go ahead, Steve. That was a little tangent.
No. I appreciate it, man. And again, like sometimes I've had a number of shows over the 200 episodes so far that we go off in what seems like a tangent, unless you're paying attention. If you're paying attention, this is no tangent. If you're paying attention, there is so much insight here that should force you to stop and look in your journey, whether you're 62, 52, 22, it doesn't matter. Stop right now in your journey, having listened to the vulnerability of Todd's story, and ask yourself, did I miss my defining moment? Did I miss that defining message? Have I just allowed that thing to come into my life and go, and just be like, it's been 5 years since my defining moment, and I didn't even realize it in the moment. Someone was telling me something based on who they were, how they did what they did. They were telling me that now is my time, and I allowed years to go by without doing anything about it. I hope you heard that in that story, because that's certainly what I heard in my story, and it was very in your story, and it was very reaffirming to me to know that that is a path that I've personally chosen to go down. But I want to now bring it into what you do, and I don't actually want to frame this as what you do best. I'm just going to say what you do incredibly well, because who am I to know what you do best? So in terms of what you do incredibly well, so much of your work is based around giving people these roadmaps to be more efficient, to be more effective, to have long-lasting results in their business and in turn themselves, and you can maybe switch those two around. But when we think about this work that you do today, helping people be more efficient, be more effective, have long-lasting results in the work that they do, if someone's listening to this and they just cannot, for whatever reason, build that initial traction that they feel they need to build in order to get on their way, to see that vision of theirs far, far in the distance come a little closer, what does some of that initial traction or some of the exercises or some of the work that you do in your coaching, what does it look like to help people get off the start line?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And in my third book, Your Will Be Done, I wrote it in 3 sections. So I have section 1, 2, and 3. And the second section is titled, actually the first section is titled Successionaire. And in that Successionaire, I talk about the donut capital world. I tell a story about my father and football. I mean, it's just a great book. But from the perspective of getting unstuck or launching or moving forward, I think that I would like to challenge every listener here today to understand that we have trademarked a word called successionaire. And the reason I chose that word is because I'm a millionaire. Okay. I don't even know what that means anymore, right? I mean, literally, when they were talking about being millionaires 100 years ago, I think it was a lot bigger deal than it is now. But at the end of the day, I'm just icky with the whole term millionaire and, self-made millionaire and all this horse crap that goes on and goes along with what it means or what it doesn't mean. But I would tell you this. If you're a millionaire, it's a version of being successful, right? And I don't know what you're at or what you're doing, but I don't count that as my definition of being successful. And I think that every student of mine, every listener right now, and I'd hope that I could coach you up a little bit here, is that successionaire, I took the word millionaire and cut off the front and put air on the back and just put success in air, right? So successionaire. I think that everyone should aspire to be a successionaire. And what that basically means is, Steve, is that a successionaire really just has the formula to becoming successful. And successful isn't exactly money. Successful isn't exactly, going to the Mars like Elon Musk. Successful is what you want it to be. And what I need you to understand, the most successful people in the world, including my father, including you, you're going to agree with me 100% on this. I'm counting on it. I know you are. The most successful people in the world know this one very first thing. They know what they want. So if you're out there and you're wondering, like, how can I become successful? How can I get off of 0? How can I get to 100? How can I do all these things? Listen, the first thing you got to do is say, this is what I want. Now, if it's to be a millionaire, then say it. If it's to be a chef, then say it. If it's to go to the Mars like Elon Musk, then say it. But I want you to say, what do you want? I don't care if it's a car. I don't care if it's a house. I don't care if it's a wife. I want to know what you want, because if you know what you want, then we're already halfway there, baby. Come on. Now think about that for a moment. If you know what you want, you're already there, halfway there. Come on. Let's get it on like Donkey Kong. We're going to let it rip potato chips. So after you know what you want, I want you to understand right now, here's what you got to do. Create a plan. That's all I got to do is create a plan. Create a damn plan. That's all you got to do. Write it down. Create a plan. Step 1, 2, and 3. This is my plan. It may suck. It doesn't matter. Create a plan. Then here's the most exciting piece of the whole strategy of a successionaire. Execute it. You mean all I got to do is do what I wrote down here and I'm successful? If you know what you want and you have a plan and then you execute the plan, then you're successful. That's it. That's the definition of a successionaire. And then do it over and over and over again. And then you aspire to be a successionaire. Let me tell you something. My youngest daughter, it's a sad story. She's a beautiful young lady. She's getting married. That's a good ending of this story. But she was just diagnosed not even 8 months ago with type 1 diabetes. She was playing softball on ESPN one moment. And the next moment she came home and sad thing. So what we did is my wife and I, we went into this idea that we were going to go to a functional doctor and we're going to figure out how to beat this thing.
Yep.
And so long story short, we ended up beating it. She hasn't taken an insulin shot in 6 months. And she carries the Dexcom there, and we've backed into her menu of her food and what she can eat, and we know what she can do, and this and that. She's gonna have a normal life. She just can't eat donuts, man. Okay, so let's get over it, right? There's a lot of things that a lot of people can't do in this world, but if she doesn't have to take the shot, she's gonna keep her eyes. She's gonna have babies. She's not gonna lose her toes. She's gonna be amazing. But what I'm trying to get to you at this is this idea that my wife, she literally worked so hard in the beginning of the days and time to cook the right meals for her all day long. For months, she put these meals together so that at the end of the day, we'd all sit down. I've lost 35 pounds. Thank you very much. You say, Todd, you look fantastic. I do. You can't tell that I'm 59 years old, right? I look, this part where you say, yeah, you look really good. All right. So here's the thing. Little tan, a little Botox. Hey, you live forever. All right. So here's the thing. Mm-hmm. So my wife took a whole day to put together a gluten intolerant meal that was perfect. Elon Musk went to the damn Mars, right? So you tell me, what is more successful? It's success. It's success. So here's the thing, my friends. I would tell you to aspire to be a successionaire. Know what you want. Just create a plan and then go execute it. and do it over and over and over again. Get good at being successful at executing your plans. And then the world's yours.
I love it. And I'd like to think you'll speak to this, is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, folks. There's a simplicity to everything there, and of course the plan needs to be right and the execution needs to be consistent, but that is all influenced day in, day out by you being so sure about what you want. The moment you know what you want, you're being truly amazed how accountable you become when you know what you want. And again, it's...
You remember the first record you broke?
Almost.
Record.
I would like to think
record.
I can. Yes.
You probably had too many, but you were so focused on that 30 seconds or whatever. You lived and ate and drank. I remember I was a pole vaulter. I had to go 14 feet. That's all I could think of. Right. And it's just this idea of your subconscious and your conscience. And I write about this in Converging Your Two Wills, God's will and our free will, the mastering of your subconscious, right? Your subconscious has no conscience, right? So when the world pours things into your subconscious, it's just going to do it.
Yep.
This idea of knowing what you want is focusing your will on your subconscious so that what you want comes out of you. And it's no secret to you as a coach, but there's a lot of people who don't understand that. They watch the TV and, the My Pillow guy comes on and you wake up with 1,000 pillows at your front door. You're like, no, that wasn't my plan. That was his plan. Right. And I know Mike Nadell, so he's okay with the joke and everything. But at the end of the day, I really want to coach people about. I really want them to know the power of subconscious. And if you learn how to actualize your mind, right, and you learn how to do those things, think about it when you take God's will first, and you make that your will, and you triangulate your free will with God's will, and there's nothing in this world that you can't accomplish.
Todd, you wouldn't be surprised to learn that I could talk to you for a very, very, very long time. And the fact of the matter is, we're already a couple minutes past what I typically would go with a guest, which there's two ways you can look at that. One, yep, we're done. But two, we might need to keep this conversation going another time. We might need to bring you back on and do this a little bit more, a little down the road. And I cannot thank you enough for multiple reasons. One, the insight. Two, the vulnerability. And three, just the delivery of authenticity behind the man who is responsible for what it is you're producing and achieving, because it's so important that people hear that. We are all about competing within your career, pursuing your optimal self. That's what this show's about. That's what my business is about. And here we have a man that could quite easily hide behind his successes, but instead stands in front of them and says, this is the work I've done on me to have everything that you see behind me. And that is powerful. Please keep doing it because it's needed in this world, brother. You know that as well as anybody. But before I let you go, I cannot let you go without you giving people all the information that they need about the many, many things flying around in your universe right now.
Yeah, I think let's just keep it simple. And you're going to come on my little podcast and you're going to bless my people, aren't you? Can I get an amen on that?
Amen on that, brother. Absolutely.
Just get to toddsaylor.com. That's TODDSAYLOR. That's toddsaylor.com. You can actually Google me if you want to do that as well. I'm going to pop up. I'm the number one pop up on Google in the world, right?
Saylor.
So you can find me there, Todd Saylor, toddsaylor.com. Everything can happen there. We got a Tiki Hut retreat, business retreat coming up November 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Love to have you there. We'll give you a special discount. We have a virtual coming up October 3, 4, and 5. Love to have you. It's a free virtual event. Love to have you on there. 3-night, 2 hours a night. I'm going to be coaching you up for free. Going to love on a lot of you in this regards. But you know what, Steve? You've been a blessing. I've got to tell you, I've done probably 11 podcasts in the last 45 days.
Wow.
And you have been the most real, most prepared, most genuine. I would hire you as my coach. I would tell you that.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And the opportunity to come join you on your show, that goes without saying. But at the same time, man, I just appreciate you. If no other person on this earth heard this conversation, and rest assured, people do listen to this show, but if nobody else heard this conversation today, I would be perfectly fine with that because it's impacted me, it's influenced me, and I know it's going to do the very same for a lot of other
well, let's
people.
do a part 2. We'll get you on my show. We're running long. Yada, yada. Let's go, baby. Let's let her rip the tape ship. God bless you, Steve.
All right, brother. Thank you. Awesome work, man. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Career Competitor. And before you leave, be sure to take advantage of your free one-time discovery call with me to see how I can be of service to you as a coach or potentially even your team. Depending on what it is you're looking for at this point within your career, I want to be able to serve you with 30 minutes of my time to see how I can be of use to you and help you on your path of continued growth towards your optimal self in order to find optimal performance. Be sure to reach out to me, steve@careercompetitor.com, or just head to the website, careercompetitor.com. I look forward to connecting with you soon, and bye for now.